I want to turn this into the ultimate off-road mini camper on a budget with very limited mechanical or carpentry skills. I'm sure you've seen these Honda Elements on the road and like myself haven't thought much of them, but let me enlighten you. These cars are incredible. This thing has so many quirks and features. Like the seats can form this makeshift bed or be tucked away without any tools. Now this particular one is a 2008 all-wheel drive model, which means it also comes with a moonroof in the back so that when you turn this into a bed, you can do a little stargazing. Technology! I mean, this thing is pretty nice. The only problem is I got tricked when buying it. I found this car on Marketplace an hour and a half away from me, and after making the trip and test driving the car, everything checked out. It did hold a salvage title and was at 176,000 miles, but that's, fellas, that's fine. Nothing can go wrong. We agreed on 4,300. I signed the title and was on my merry way. When like half an hour into the drive, the gears just stopped shifting while I was on a mountain pass freeway. You can see here, I'm revving the engine, but the speed is not increasing.
Yeah, chat, we might have just gone bamboozled.
I had to pull over and call my homie's uncle. Which brings us to today. My whole premise was for this build to cost 10% of what an off-road converted Sprinter goes for, which is about 100 grand, so 10% of that makes my budget $10,000.
You're completely sure of the math.
That's my quant.
So the car itself was $4,300, the tow cost $300, and I was able to register it for $356. So we're already at almost $5,000, and here's the current state of the car. The reverse doesn't really engage. The first few gears kind of work as long as you don't have to downshift. The transmission fluid is brown and smells burnt. One of the headlights is out. There's missing trim pieces, and it's also just really dirty with questionable stains all throughout. But before we get into anything, I want to have the transmission checked out to see if this thing is even worth restoring or if I should start from scratch with a different Honda Element.
About like $4,000 or $5,000.
You're probably looking about $5,500.
It wasn't looking good, but I eventually had the car towed to my homie's friend Anton, who works at a shop but took this on as an after-hours side project, and he replaced my broken transmission with a working used one he found. And so a few weeks later, I got the call. Driving this car kind of feels like I died in GTA and had to restart from scratch. Anyways, let's see if the reverse works. I hit the road and was able to drive 40 minutes home without any issues. The car downshifted smoothly and didn't hesitate or stall out one bit. Now, as happy as I am to have this thing back on the road, a transmission that shifts is not free. In fact, it was $1,745 plus $100 for the tow, which I think is actually a pretty great deal. Very thankful with how that worked out, but the car was still super musty. So I think let's start by at least cleaning it up a little. Well, more than a little. I popped off some trim pieces under the seats, which revealed like 15 years of gunk, as well as 4 bolts per seat that needed to be unscrewed. Once those are out, you can unplug all the electric connections and the front seats come right out, but it was not a pretty sight. Now, I also took the back seats out, but on Honda Elements, those come out without any tools. You just pull a lever and take them right out. But man, I did not realize how musty this car actually was. I picked up some of the larger loot by hand, then moved on to using a vacuum, and underneath all that was more gunk and dried up liquids, so I took the car further and further apart. I used this drill brush attachment to loosen up all the dirt, sprayed everything down, eventually even used a steam cleaner to disinfect everything, at which point the light at the end of the tunnel finally started to show. But next up were the lightly dookie stained seats. I used this spray cloth shampoo, the drill brush from earlier, and an extractor machine, and then did multiple rounds of that until they finally looked and smelled a little nicer. The rear seats also had mystery stains all throughout, so I ended up doing the same exact thing with those. All this cleaning was a multi-day process throughout which I did crash out a few times, but I'm so happy with how it came out. This was all the loot I collected from the car. I did find $3.20 in change, which we can subtract from the total. And at this point, I was ready to move on to the exterior, but unfortunately, we had a few issues. I don't think a wash is gonna fix trim pieces like this rear one. The front bumper is rough. A new one would make the car look so much nicer, especially with how good the rest of the panels look. There's also a couple missing trim pieces on the roof. So I think before we get into detailing the exterior, we gotta find some replacement parts. visuals are unreal. It's a fascinating concept where you pay an entrance fee and then can just free roam and wrench on any of the cars you see, taking off whatever parts you need. Once you pay that $3 fee to enter, it's basically a free-for-all. State and federal laws no longer apply here. I don't know about that, but it's pretty great. I ended up going to 2 different locations and harvesting quite a few parts. You do pay for them on your way out, but it's nothing compared to buying the parts elsewhere.
My collar's blue, but my neck is red.
This was my $57 haul here. I did end up cleaning everything at home and started putting the parts on. Now the parts were not all perfect. This rear bumper piece was not in mint condition, but it definitely looked a lot better than the original one. I screwed on the antenna, which was pretty nifty, popped in this little square, replaced the broken wheel cover, which was a great find. To put things in perspective, a new wheel cover alone would have cost more than this entire haul if we got it used on eBay. And then after thoroughly cleaning it, I attached this missing armrest. Things were coming together, and again, compared to ordering these parts anywhere else, this process saved us a ton of money. Now, did I spend 25% of the entire car purchase price on some beefy new tires? Yes. But hear me out. I think these all-terrain tires with the white lettering on the outside are gonna look insanely tough. Oh, I just split my head open. Okay, yeah, it does look pretty tough. I also had the tire pressure sensors replaced when the new tires got put on, which got rid of this TPMS light. But I was still not able to freely drive the car because one of the headlights was out. I was gonna order a new one, but I realized these ones still used bulbs. So I spent like 10 bucks on a replacement bulb, popped it in, and while the bumper was off, I figured I'd try to restore these headlights, which were starting to get a little foggy. So I used a restoration kit that involves some wiping, sanding, and ceramic coat application. This alone made the car look like 5 years newer, but to make it smell 5 years newer, I popped out the glove box to reveal the cabin air filters.
Keep in mind, this is the air that I'd be breathing in when I turn on the AC.
Oh yeah, that's pretty grimy. Yeah, I'm glad I got those replaced. I then also replaced the engine air filter so that the air the engine inhales was a little more fresh. I don't know, it just seemed like a good idea and was not difficult. Let's move on to the front bumper. I ordered a replacement bumper for $272, and when it came in, not the right shade of gray for our trim, so I asked to return it, and they said, man, take your bumper, take your money, get your bread up, little bro. They really let me keep the bumper for free, which was super cool. So with nothing to lose, I decided to spray paint it in my backyard with a can I had laying around in the garage. I put all the trim back on and turned out decent. But I did buy the car without wheel well covers, so I got these online, slipped them on, and then to really finish off this restoration, I think I'm gonna pop on a Nightmare podcast and do a 3-step paint correction by hand. It was my first time trying this, but it's fairly simple. You apply on the compound, wipe it off, apply on the polish, wipe it off, apply on the wax, believe it or not, wipe it off.
Hey guys, Chris Fix here.
It was actually pretty neat. I think this hood was a great example since it had this massive scratch across it, and you can see it just disappear right before your eyes as you go through this 3-step process. Man, this is like an entirely different car than from when we first got it. I'm super happy with it, but now it's time to get into the actual camper build. Now, most of the designs I've seen online are of people just building a bed frame, adding some legs, and putting it into the car. I want to try something different. I think I can build the bed platform into the car by running some horizontal support beams across the side areas where the seats used to be. That way there's a ton of unobstructed storage under the bed platform, and I think it'll just look like a nice, clean, simple design. Let's go gather some wood. I went to Home Depot, bought some vertical wood as well as some horizontal wood. I then borrowed some tools from my dad and was ready to make my carpentry debut. I fiddled around with this measuring tape, then cut the first piece of wood and made holes on both sides so that it would fit right on these little bolts. That didn't work off rip, but after a few more tries and making the holes much larger, it did fit on and was super sturdy. Second piece of wood, it only took one cut, and this piece of wood laid right on this little nook here, but it was a little wobbly. So I screwed in these little pieces of scrap wood to the ends of the beam, and that got it also pretty sturdy. There was this little flat area here in the middle on both sides, which was kind of perfect. It was super simple, one cut, and I just rested the beam right on there. Now for the most challenging one, I wanted a beam as close to the end of the car as possible, right where it begins to curve in. So I created a cardboard template, and after a few tries, I cut this beam down to lay pretty snug on this area in the back, which was pretty satisfying. Now for the horizontal wood, I realized my original plan of adding hinges would not work, as there isn't enough height for the platform to bend back onto itself. It would hit the ceiling of the car. So that kind of simplified the design. I decided I'd just slide the wood into place when making the bed. It also meant I could return some of the materials I bought, which gave us like $100 back. But anyways, I made a more elaborate stencil for these back corners here, traced it onto the flat wood, and got to work with this cordless jigsaw, which may be the greatest tool ever invented. It's so satisfying, and you can get real jiggy with it on the details. I mean, at this point, I felt like a carpentry genius, but I was quickly humbled. I did have to carry it back. I tried sanding it to take some size off, which I wanted to do anyway to give it this smooth finish, but that still wasn't enough. So I cut it further down, had to tweak these corners a little bit, and eventually fit like a glove. It was super solid. However, we did have one issue I didn't see coming. I've heard that part of the reason as to why these Honda Elements got discontinued in, I think it was 2011 or 2012, is because safety regulations got more strict, and these cars, because they don't have a pillar here, do not do well when they're rammed from the side. And this is just my theory, but I think in order to protect the driver, they made this part of the seat very rigid. If I put a piece of wood on here, it's gonna be like 2 inches higher than this side. So instead, I'm thinking of cutting out a smaller square and laying it in the center here. And hopefully this bump just gets eaten up by the memory foam mattress. And so I did exactly that. Cut out a smaller square, sanded the edges, and then I also created this Minecraft pig looking thing that fit perfectly inside this oddly 2x4 size space in between the cup holders, and that acted as a leg for the bed. And to polish things off, I ended up staining the wood to give it a more completed look. So here I was once again painting in the dark, but I feel like it came out okay. With the platform done, I still needed a few crucial tweaks to the car. First off, a mattress. I got this full-size cheese block off Amazon, and it was a great fit. A little awkward to store and maneuver around the car, but I don't regret it. I also got some caps for the tires, a license plate frame. I put on these visors so that you can crack the windows to let oxygen into the car when you're camping in the rain without water getting in, and they also just look kind of cool and off-roady. And then also this net that goes over the window so that bugs can't come in through that cracked ventilation window. And because we surprisingly ended up fitting into the budget so well, I decided to splash on the ultimate car accessory. It did take a little finessing to get it in and mounted, but this car now had
UAV online.
This fits the rest of the dash so well. I think because the font on these buttons is very similar to the one on these knobs, it kind of looks OEM. But that's the final modification. We managed to abide by the budget pretty well with almost a band to spare. But now for the ultimate test, let's see if this thing actually camps.
Pulled in a respectable 80 for the night.
Yeah, this thing camps.